All right. Hey, welcome. We're talking about the one great thing that every lesson or sermon must contain. Had to write that down, make sure to get all the words in there. I had the one thing that every lesson must contain, but now I want to focus on one thing that every great lesson or sermon contains. And if you are a Sunday school teacher or communicator, there is one thing that we want to get into your mind when you're preparing and when you're presenting, and we're talking about being effective presenters. What is the one great thing that needs to be in there that makes it all come together and have a great message? So anyway, welcome aboard. This is Mike here at the Sunday School Express. I think I called it last week. We're plugging away, doing effective presentation, helping people that are Sunday school teachers and pastors or sermoners, people who are presenting in front of larger groups, to be the best presenters they possibly can be. And today we want to talk about that one thing that makes the great message. What is it that kind of puts it all together? And I'm going to give you three different things that I use when I'm preparing and going through all my content, and then how I summarize it down. And so stay tuned for those three. And then we'll talk about a couple kind of boo-boos that sort of tend to happen in here too. If you are a presenter, if you are in front of people, if you are someone that is doing all this in front of folks, you need to be ready to rumble. And having everything focused is really important. And getting this down to a single thing is what we're talking about. So here's kind of this idea that I think it is. It's the one single thing that makes a message come together, that makes it memorable, that makes it a great move from just a message to a great message or a great lesson or great communication. And that is that there is a single point of focus in that message. Now, you may cover a lot of content. You may be teaching expository through something, but at the end, it's like it all comes down to, or you as a good speaker bring it all down to that one singular thing. It's often called a call to action, although not every time you present is there a call to action, but it may be a call to contemplate, that type of thing. But it is the big idea that is in there. It is that idea, that kind of the conclusion, the whole matter. Solomon said the conclusion, the whole matter is fear God and keep his commandments. I mean, this is the whole duty of man. This is the idea of just bringing things down, bringing your lesson all the way down. So anyway, Sunday school teachers, that's what we're going to cover. I'll give you a couple things here in a moment. For those of you that are new on the YouTube channel, thank you very much. My name is Mike. I'm the former pastor, founding pastor, actually the term we use, at Sinclair Baptist Church in Wyoming, and I spent a lot of time working with small rural churches. And if you are small and rural, you know what it's like. There's not a lot of training available for you, and so that's why we have put some of this stuff together. Every Saturday on here, we do a YouTube or a podcast every Sunday, and this comes out on Monday. That is just helpful for smaller churches in the training, the things that they need. You can go back and watch some of the other ones. Last week we did a thing on how to upgrade your Sunday school, and really got just a lot of response on that. So let me just jump into this. Many times, and we've all been involved in a message, and after the entire message is over, the entire lesson is over, you kind of like go back, go, what did he say? What did she say? I mean, there, you kind of scratch your head. It's like, what was the single thing? We've all been through that. We've had classes that way. We've had, a lot of professors in colleges kind of, when they're given a lot of content, that you just like, oh, you just kind of blurred after a while. And we don't want that to happen, especially in our local churches. And if you're a local church teacher, preacher, Sunday school teacher, you want to make sure people walk out of class and they're going, oh wow, that was really helpful. That was good. That was some stuff that I need. So what we need to do, of course, is to make sure that we don't have too much content. That's one of the problems that often happens. We study. We have 10 hours of study or 5 hours of study, whatever it happens to be, and you end up with like miles of content. and you then try to cram it into a 30-minute window or 20 minutes in some cases for Sunday school class lessons with children. The attention span is a little shorter. So you got too much content. And so that's one of the things is paring down the content and coming down and kind of doing less for more. In other words, bringing it down to a single thing. So that's one of the problems is too much content. The other one is too disconnected. And this is the idea that sometimes we end up with is that the points that we have and the things that we are, they don't really connect into a singular idea and they don't really focus into one particular thing. I heard a message several years ago. My wife and I were traveling across Nebraska. We stopped at a Sunday night service at a church, and a guy spoke on a topic called Jesus is Wonderful. Now, that topic is very powerful. I mean, we would all agree that yes, Jesus is wonderful. But then he proceeded to kind of give his points, and it was Jesus is wonderful because of, I think the first one is the blood, and the second one, Jesus is wonderful because of the book. Speaking of the Bible, and Jesus is wonderful because of the blessed hope. So there was like 3 points, and he happened to speak for about 30 or 35 minutes on each one. And it was a hot church, and oh boy, hour and a half sermon. We weren't ready. When it was all over, you just kind of shook your head and walked out. I remember it so well because it was a lesson on too much content and too much disconnect. There wasn't anything that connected the wonderful to them. In other words, he spoke 3 sermons is what he did. So that's the idea. Sometimes we have things that are disconnected and we need to kind of bring them down. And what is the common thing? What brings all these things together? And that takes some time to do. And again, I'll give you 3 little things that I use to help when I'm speaking to kind of put this together. The other one is I've got written down here. It's too focused. We often get too focused on the lesson or too focused on the sermon and not focused on communicating. Okay, let me say that again. You're too focused on the sermon or the lesson, not focused on communicating. And what that means is, and we've all been guilty of this. It's like I've got this body of content I've got to get through, and it doesn't matter how fast or how long or how quick or whatever. I'm going to make it through my thing that I studied, and I'm going to get done with this. And what you end up there is you end up really, it becomes a focus on the pastor and the speaker, and they're just getting their thing done. And you're not really focused on them listening or paying attention or them making any application. So those are some of the things that kind of cause it to go wrong. Now, let me get to the things that will help you. Okay. And these are things that I have learned over the years. In my speaking experience, that I have done, since really my career started, which has been all my life, been pretty much a public speaker. The first one is this idea of what must they know? Okay. In other words, what is something that they need to know? What must they know? Now, from that will stem out some other questions like what must they do? And, where are we going with this? And what's the action? That type of thing. But what must people know? And if you're in a speaking situation, what must they know? Now, you might be teaching a lot of content and like going through the history of First Kings or whatever. But when you get done with that, when you get through, that's where the what must they know. And in the case of like the kings, it's like, listen, we've studied many, many of these kings, but there's one thing I want you to know that when they sought the Lord, good things happen. When they rejected God, bad things happen. You know what I'm saying? It's a summary of kind of putting that together. So, what must they know? Might teach a lesson about covering 2 or 3 parables, but then you would come back and kind of summarize it and say this is how Jesus taught, and he wants us to understand other people, okay, in parables. That's why he used stories. He used these stories, and because he used these stories, then we relate to other people, and that will help you to be able to relate to other people in your story. So I'm just saying is you just try to summarize some things there. The next one I wrote down is what I call the phrase that pays. And this is where you take your entire message, your entire thing. And this is much more for sermons or inspirational type of things, but you summarize it and bring it down to a single phrase. Okay. What is it? And it could be a sentence actually, if you want, but it could be something very simple. We did one not too long ago with a bunch of children, and the whole story about falling into sin, and used a bunch of Bible stories. But we kind of came up with this: don't give in, run from sin. And it was sort of based on the Joseph thing, running from Potiphar's wife. Don't give in, run from sin. And because we made it a short, memorable phrase, people remembered it. In fact, today I was at just the church doing some things, getting ready for tomorrow, and we had a guy looked at something on the wall, and he says, "I remember that sermon series that you did. I remember all those things about it." And it was just because of we had a couple letters. I took the word I made a giant M and an E, so I had the whole held them up, and it said me. Okay, and the gist of the entire sermon was not being selfish, but for me, and we turned the M upside down, and it turned it into the word we. So we don't need to focus on me, we need to focus on others. Okay, just a very simple thing. But because we did the me we thing, it was this single phrase here: don't focus on me, focus on we. And that phrase, so well, that's what I'm saying is, you want to summarize things down to singular, simple, big idea phrases that they don't necessarily have to rhyme, they don't necessarily have to be alliterated. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's really what the entire thing was all about, is into one single phrase. And the last one, very similar to that, is kind of this idea of and here's what I use, and it's a little phrase. If you're finishing a sermon, you're finishing a lecture, you're finishing a series or whatever, you're saying, so I want you to dot dot dot, I want you to do this. Okay, because of this, I want you to do this. And what would the this be? With the Kings thing, it would be because of this series, and because we've seen all these kings and how they've strayed, I want you to make sure that you keep your heart close to God, and don't get caught up into idols, don't get caught up into popularity, don't get caught up into doing your own thing. Okay, so it's the idea of, I want you to what? Okay. And whatever that what is really what your message is all about. It's the conclusion. And when you do that, you are doing a great gift to your people. You are giving them a single idea to hang their hat on, and they are going to be with you through that, because they know that you've got something. You're all right there. And so that's the important part. So if you want to have great messages and great lessons, you got to kind of summarize all this stuff down into a single thing. And I want you to grab hold of that. So that is my single thing for you, is to summarize to a single thing. So anyway, thank you so much. If this is helpful, do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe to our channel right now. You can hit the subscribe button, and every Saturday when we do these, and sometimes during the middle of the week, we publish other things too. We will get these things out to you here at reachkeep.com, and that's what we're all about. So anyway, again, Mike Holmes signing out. Thanks for being with us here today, and God bless you guys. You have a great day, and we will see you next week.